your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our brand new grading scale. Grades go from 5 to 1, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest grade a pick can receive. What we'll do is tally up all the scores from each and every single pick made by X said team, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. This, of course, is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples: Jags next, Jaguars, Duval next. You get where I'm going. This is a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is one of the teams that every year I look forward to doing their draft. I think their GM, David Caldwell, just gets it, okay? Now, in past years, Dave Caldwell has just got in and got out. And I think he was one of those guys that was straight to the point. He wasn't really worried about accumulating picks, moving up, moving back, any of that stuff. He just usually took the players that were the best on his board at the time of the selection and kept it moving. And generally, when you do that, you end up getting quality football players. In the Jaguars, one thing you can't say, they may not win a ton of games every single year, but they generally have talent on their roster. Their defense had been one of the better units in all of football for the last few years, but they hit a downturn last season and things started to implode within the organization. And there was this stigma with Jacksonville that you didn't want to play in Jacksonville and everybody wanted out. And all of a sudden, it had become this place where if you wanted to actually have a career that flourished and had a career that was in a healthy environment, you didn't go to Jacksonville. As a matter of fact, the NFLPA told its players, do not sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're finding players. It's not a great environment. It prompted them to make some organizational changes, most notably getting rid of Tom Coughlin. He's now out of the picture, and I think they're trying to revamp the image of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a locker room back in 2017 that had enough leaders, enough guys that could lead the locker room and have everyone else fall in line. It kind of got off the tracks a bit. People started to smell themselves. And this was a locker room full of malcontents, guys that thought they needed to be paid this, that, and the third. And so now I think what the Jaguars are doing, and this is a big draft for them because generally it's a 7-player draft. I went back and looked at, because I remember saying to myself, Jacksonville, I already know they're going to have talented football players and it's going to be about a 6 or 7-player draft. Well, for the last 4 years, Dave Caldwell's draft consisted of 7 players, all of them. So to have a 12-player draft is a major upgrade in terms of what they're looking to do. But I think it's a bigger statement on how this team is moving forward into the future. This is a team that needs to revamp this roster, especially on the defensive side. They've moved on from a bunch of guys. Obviously, the most notable guys were Jalen Ramsey and the other cornerback opposite of him, A.J. Bouye, trading away both of those guys. Ramsey in season, Bouye after the season prior to the draft. And now you have a disgruntled cornerback, or excuse me, edge rusher in Yannick Ngakoue. Thought he would have gotten moved at the draft. Did not happen. We'll see how that situation plays itself out because he's made it known that he doesn't want to play for this organization any longer. They traded away one of their leaders and centerpieces along the defensive line in Calais Campbell. So you can see that this team is going through a little bit of a rebuilding phase, if you will, but they still got enough talent that they can turn this thing around if they get the kind of leadership that they need in the locker room. And I think this draft is a little bit of a sign that they're looking to turn the page and become a different football team. They're not just looking for good football players, which they were in the past. Similar to Cincinnati, I thought that Cincinnati and Jacksonville, I've always said that those two teams, they get it in terms of talent. And you could throw Dallas in there as well. They understand that talent wins in this league. And even though it hasn't translated itself to wins, and that's probably more so because of the lack of consistency at the quarterback position than anything else, they understand that you get talent in the draft and you figure it out afterwards. And in Jacksonville, it kind of came back to haunt them, similar to the way it did in Cincinnati. Some of those guys just simply did not pan out, could not keep their nose clean off the field. And so with Jacksonville, in their case, it necessarily wasn't off the field as much as it was just in the locker room. A bunch of guys that had tempers, that didn't know how to control themselves, whether it's Leonard Fournette getting into a fight with fans in Buffalo, or it's Jalen Ramsey spouting off and ultimately getting himself traded, or Yannick Ngakoue now wanting to get paid. And maybe some of it is just guys wanting to be paid and not being valued correctly. But some of it also is Dante Fowler Jr. being fined repeatedly and wanting out of Jacksonville. And so all of these high-level talented players end up playing somewhere else after they either run out of their rookie contract or they just want out before it's done. Either way, I think the Jaguars need to get back to finding a way to getting guys that mesh in the locker room, high character guys, guys that have leadership qualities that will help this football team, not only in the talent department, but also in the leadership department as well. So let's take a look at this draft and see what the Jacksonville Jaguars were able to acquire in the 2020 NFL draft. We start in the first round. Jaguars had 2 first-round selections, and both of them were exceptional, and they were at positions of need. So I thought the Jaguars did some really good things. I've got my write-ups here, and we start in the first round, 9th overall selection, cornerback out of Florida. C.J. Henderson is the selection. Super intelligent C.J. Henderson. 6'1", 204, 32-inch arms, ran a 4.39 at the combine. We all knew he could run, and he put that time to the film, which kind of solidified his spot as the second corner available in this draft behind Jeff Okudah of Ohio State. In 2019, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, no forced fumbles, 11 pass breakups, no interceptions, no block kicks. But in his career, however, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 22 pass breakups, 6 INTs, and 2 of them going to the crib. So this is a guy with a lot of ball production while at Florida. So this is a guy that comes in right away and upgrades your secondary and is a true #1 corner if he can put all of these things together. I had him ranked as my #2 corner in this draft. As I mentioned, he was definitely a first-round pick in my mind. I gave him a first-round grade, and I'll give you my player comp for him a little bit later on. Strengths: quality, size, and length. In today's NFL, I talk about the receivers and how they're getting bigger and bigger, and you need guys that can kind of mirror that with size and length. C.J. Henderson fits that profile at 6'1", 204 with 32-inch arms. When you look at him, he looks like a tall, long defender. So those are things that you value, that you covet at the next level. Outstanding athleticism and speed. That's something that you can't teach. Either you have it or you don't. This guy has it in spades. I talked about the 4.39 40. It allows him to have the makeup speed, and that's the next pro anyhow. Top-notch makeup speed. When he gets beat, he's never out of the play because he's got another gear. And a lot of times with these elite corners, they have another gear that they can tap into. When you think you've gotten them, they turn it up to another level and are able to get back into the play and make a play on the football. We used to see Deion Sanders do it all the time, where he would bait quarterbacks into thinking that the receiver was open, only to shift it into high gear and catch up and make a play on the football and pick it off. The elite corners have the ability to make it look as if a guy is open, get back into the play, and make something happen. He has that capability, not saying that he's allowing guys to get open to make plays, but if a guy were to get behind him, he's got the ability to turn it up a notch and get back into the play. Plant and drive capabilities. He's one of those guys that if he sees it, he's going to plant his foot and drive, and he's coming down with lightning quickness to try to make a play on the football. So his plant and drive is among the best in this draft. Again, right behind Jeff Okudah. Physical at the point of catch. He's one of those guys when the ball is in the air and the receiver's going up for it, if he's not able to make a play on the football in terms of trying to pick it off, he's slapping down at the wrist, he's slapping at the ball, he's raking. He's very physical at the point of catch, trying to disrupt guys from making a play. Seamless balance and transition fluidity. So what I mean by that is at the line of scrimmage, his balance is tremendous when he's trying to get off a jam and then he turns and transitions into whether it's a back pedal or he turns and opens up his hips to get into his side shuffle or a full-out sprint, whatever he's doing, or plant and drive, whatever he's doing, he transitions seamlessly, has balance. He's not off balance when he's going to jam or he's looking to turn and get into a transition. He's not off balance when he's doing any of these things. And that's, you'd be surprised at how big of a difference that makes when you go from your back pedal to open up your hips to sprint. If it's sloppy, if it's off balance, you can lose a step or two with the fast receiver, and all of a sudden, where you were in phase just a second ago, he's now on top of you, and that ball's put out in front of him, and you can't get back into play. Now you've given up a 37-yard gain. So having seamless transitions and having balance in everything that you do as a cornerback is instrumental in having success. He has that. I termed him patiently greedy. All right, he's not one of these guys that's over anxious to try to make a play, so much so to the point where a double move is going to eat him alive. You know, there's some guys that they're so anxious, they're so aggressive, they want to make a play that at the first sight of a move, they're ready to bite all over it and jump all over it. And that's how you get caught up in a double move. You know, that's how you get beat on a sluggo. That's how you get beat on a stop and go. But he's not going for any of that stuff. He's patiently greedy. While he wants to make a play, he's not going to allow you to bait him into something frivolous. All right, he's going to wait. Now, once he identifies that is, in fact, the route, he's jumping all over it. So he's patiently greedy. I like that about him. Can handle press in off man or zone. Now, sometimes he can fall asleep behind the wheel in zone. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he can play press off. He can play press. He can play off. He can play press and bail. He can play a number of different coverages. He's coverage diverse. So you don't have to worry about this guy excelling at man, but not really doing the same in zone. He can do a little bit of everything. He's a willing tackler. The knock on him is that he doesn't tackle. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, or that he doesn't want to tackle. I beg to differ. I think there's just some technical flaws there that he needs to clean up. And then, of course, ball production. This is a guy with 6 interceptions. Did not have any last year, which goes to show you that he was making plays the first couple years on campus at Florida because he had 6 going into his final year at Florida, but didn't have any last year. And he could have had about 2 or 3. He dropped a bunch of opportunities last year for whatever reason. But this guy can make plays on the football, and I expect him to do that once he gets to the next level. Weaknesses. I'd like to see him trust his abilities more. So what I mean by that is press at the line of scrimmage. He'll get in the face and delete the airspace at the line of scrimmage of a receiver, but he won't lay hands on them. It's almost like he doesn't trust himself to put his hands on a guy and recover. You've got the recovery speed. If this guy beats you off the line of scrimmage with a clean release, you can get back into the play. I would like to see him try to disrupt the route a little bit more often. I think he's too lenient on these receivers by allowing them free releases up the field and then just running with them and staying in phase. I think he can do more to disrupt the timing of a play at the line of scrimmage by laying hands on them. A stiff inside jab on a guy trying to get to the outside, I think would really do him some good. I think he can do that and add that to his game a little bit more. And don't face guard. A lot of times he's in phase and he just panics for whatever reason. Trust your abilities, dude. You're right there. You're right in the hip pocket of that receiver. Turn and locate the football. Do not face guard. Do not put yourself in a compromising position. You've done the hardest part, which is stay in phase. Now all you got to do is look back for the football. So he just needs to trust his abilities a little bit more. I think sometimes he panics when he doesn't need to. Trust your abilities. You've done the hard part, which is you've stayed with this receiver for 90% of the play. Don't F it up on the final 10% by not looking for the football and face guarding and panicking. Play more under control when going in for a tackle. That's the next con. Look, a lot of people have made a big deal about him not wanting to tackle. I don't think this is a not wanting to tackle issue. When you watch him, he is a guy that is willing to tackle. I just think he's not very good at it. Now, I think he could be better, and here's the problem. He just needs to be more under control. He goes in like a bat out of hell when he's looking to make a tackle. And instead of him going in like a screaming banshee, he needs to go in under control, similar to the way that he plays receivers when I talk about him being patient. All right, he needs to do the same thing when going in for a tackle. He wants to go up as fast as possible, 100 miles an hour, and try to make a play. And it's usually a feeble attempt. Now, this isn't the situation that I saw a couple of years ago when I was watching Kayla Witherspoon, where I'm like, he just doesn't want to tackle. Kayla Witherspoon physically doesn't want any parts of tackling. He wanted no smoke. And the 49ers, to the point where John Lynch called him and said, look, dude, if we're going to take you, you got to tackle, man. We got an issue right now with you not wanting to tackle. You've got to tackle. Like, it was that big of a problem. That's not the problem here with C.J. Henderson. I don't believe that that's the case here. I think he just needs to be better technically in terms of going and breaking down and being a little bit more fundamentally sound when going to make a tackle. We'll fall asleep behind the wheel in zone coverage from time to time. And I think it was no more apparent than the Auburn game when wide receiver Seth Williams got behind him a couple of times in that game. The first time, you know, those things kind of happen. Your eye discipline kind of goes to hell in the handbasket when the quarterback rolls out of the pocket. You've got the guy covered initially. Quarterback rolls out. You kind of lose eye discipline, and that guy that you're covering or supposed to be covering then goes up the field and you lose him for a second and then realize, oh shit, that's my guy. And he goes up the sidelines on that scramble drill, which you're taught as a receiver. When the quarterback scrambles out of the pocket, you go up the field. All right, you either come straight back downhill to the football or you go up the field. And a lot of times guys want the big play, they go up the field. And he lost sight of Seth Williams. He got behind him. Luckily enough for him, Seth Williams didn't come up with the catch. But the second time, I don't know what he was doing because he was in cover 3. His responsibility, you're deeper than the deepest, you're wider than the widest, and he just fell asleep. I don't know if he thought he had help over the top. I don't know what he was doing, but his eyes were in the backfield. Seth Williams runs right past him on a skinny post, and they throw the deep ball to Seth Williams. Had that ball been on the money, it's a walk-in touchdown. Instead, he had to make a diving grab down to like the 13-yard line, but that was all on C.J. Henderson, and he looked around like, yo, that's my fault. I don't know what the hell I was doing there. Like, he's got to be better in that regard. Can't fall asleep behind the wheel. Can't be giving up easy cheapies deep. And then he had to drop interceptions in 2019, as I referenced earlier. Just catch the football. Like, a couple of them, when you're like, oh, okay, those were toughies. But I expect a guy with the ball production of a C.J. Henderson to make those plays. There's one against South Carolina where I'm like, dude, you got to catch that. It was an opportunity to take points off the scoreboard. It was in the end zone, and he just dropped the football. And the wide receiver did a good job of raking at his arms. He still needed to catch that football. No excuses to be made. Catch the football. There are opportunities, one against the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, I think it was, or might have been UT Martin. Either way, he had a chance to make a play there. He kind of mistimed his jump a little bit, but had a chance to come down with the ball there. There was an errant throw in another game I watched where the quarterback kind of threw it behind the receiver and it went right to him. I don't think he was expecting it, but he tried to one-hand it. Probably should have caught that one too, but he could have had more interceptions in his career. Just like to see him catch the football. And then he missed 3 games. I talked about that UT Martin game. He got injured on a play early in that ball game. Ended up missing the next 3 games due to an ankle injury. So that's just something on the Carfax you need to keep in mind. My comp for him is Xavier Rhodes. If you remember, Xavier Rhodes was really good early in his NFL career. And I really don't know if the injuries or what may have you, or if he lost his confidence. Last year was not a good year for him. The year before that was a subpar year. But early in Xavier Rhodes' career, he was top notch. Remember, roads were closed. I see a lot of those same capabilities here in C.J. Henderson. He's got the speed. He's got the ball production. He's got the ability. He's a fluid mover. I love C.J. Henderson. Love what he brings to the table. This is an easy no-brainer. It's a position of need for the Jacksonville Jaguars. For me, this is a 5 for sure. You go to the next pick in the draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. First round, once again, as we mentioned, 20th pick overall. Edge rusher out of LSU. Kayla Vaughn Chaisson is the pick. I love this selection too. To me, those were the 2 biggest needs for the Jaguars coming into the draft were cornerback. Obviously, they signed guys in the offseason. Most notably, they signed one of the Bengals corners. But you still needed cornerback help. I didn't think that what you did in free agency was enough. Darqueze Dennard was the corner signed, and I didn't think that was enough, to stop you from taking a corner in the first round. And edge rusher, just because of the situation with Yannick Ngakoue was so up in the air, you needed to upgrade that position either way, whether he was here or not. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be around, and so I love this selection here. I didn't think he was going to be here, for you to be honest with you. I was shocked that he was still available. I thought the Cowboys were going to take him, but because of the way the draft fell, they couldn't pass up CeeDee Lamb, and I think that really was the deciding factor on you getting your hands on Kayla Chaisson. 6'3", 254, 32-inch arms, 13.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 of them for sacks. 1 forced fumble, 2 pass breakups in 2019. Overall for his career, 19 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 4 pass breakups. So this is a guy that I think is just scratching the surface as an edge rusher. And big-time leadership qualities. Got the 18 jersey at LSU. If you know anything about that, that means that you stand for the highest character at LSU. It is an honor to be allowed to wear 18. He was number 18, so that tells you a lot about how they felt about Kayla Chaisson, not just as a player, but also as a person off the field. Again, that's going to be a part of the theme here with this Jaguars draft. High character guys with leadership qualities. They're looking to change the way that locker room is conducted. Strengths: explosion, a twitchy ball of energy. This guy just is so twitchy. He is oozing and dripping twitchiness. When you talk about explosion off the snap and movement skills, you're talking about Kayla Chaisson. That's why you get excited by a guy like Kayla Chaisson, because there's so much he can do with that explosion, and you see it snap in, snap out. Speed to power is a winner. When you got a fastball like he does, I just talked about the explosion and the twitchiness off the edge. When you have that kind of explosion, guys are scared. All right, they're looking to open up right off the gate, right out of the gate, right off the snap. They're looking to open up their hips so that they don't get embarrassed by his speed. And guys that can take that ability to scare tackles with their speed and turn it into power, that is gold, my friends. That is absolute gold. He has that. Plays with outstanding leverage. I talked about using that speed and turning it into power and converting it, or as I like to call it, STP, speed to power. Well, the reason he's able to turn that speed into power so well is because he plays with outstanding leverage. He gets up under the pads of that tackle, and you know anything about tackles, they don't want to lose the leverage battle, because once you do, you can be allowed to be put on skates. And that's how he's able to win when he goes STP, is because he plays with outstanding leverage. He gets low, gets up under the pads of that tackle or that guard, and starts to drive them back. Maybe the most fluid and dynamic inside stunt I've ever seen. His ability to cross over, or his ability to loop inside on a stunt, is ridiculous. It's almost like this ridiculous jump slide where it's almost like he levitates for a second and goes from all the way outside on the C gap all the way inside to the A gap in a snap, in a blink of an eye. Like, whoa, how the hell did you get in there that quick? And because it's so rapid, that center has no chance. He cannot respond. That guard, no chance. And so he's already past them. They're looking to get a piece of him, and they can't even grab him to hold him. And he's going after the quarterback. It's ridiculous. It's insane how quick he is on these stunts inside. Just ridiculous. Fluid, easy mover with tremendous lateral agility. And that lateral agility kind of speaks to how he's able to stunt. His ability to move on the football field, whether he's dropping into coverage in the space or he's rushing up the field, running with a running back out of the backfield. He can do it all. He's just so fluid. He's such an easy mover on the football field. I talked about the leadership qualities. He wore number 18. I talked about the prestige that comes with that at LSU. The Oklahoma game is a great example. They were destroying Oklahoma. You remember the playoff game. They scored 42 points. Joe Burrow had like 6 touchdown passes in the first half, maybe 7. I don't even recall. It was that bad. They were killing those guys in the first half of that game. And there were some foolish penalties going on by some of the LSU players that were getting into a jawing contest with some of the Oklahoma players. He took those guys aside and he got them in a big circle and he chewed them out and told them, look, this game's over. All right. For all intents and purposes, we've taken care of business today. But we still got 2 quarters of football. Do not get yourself suspended. Because if you get thrown out of this game, not only are you out for the rest of this game, More importantly, you're out for the first half of the next game. We need every single one of you guys. Get your head in the game and let's finish this thing like we're supposed to. So he was the guy that delivered that message. All right, so that tells you the kind of leadership that this guy brings to the table. Closing speed. This guy ran down CeeDee Lamb, and I know CeeDee Lamb's no burner, okay? He's a 4-5 guy, but again, that just kind of speaks to what kind of an athlete we're dealing with here. CeeDee Lamb catches the football in that Oklahoma game. He's off to the races, and guess who walks him down? That's right. You guessed it, number 18, Kayla Chaisson. So you're dealing with a supremely gifted athlete here in Kayla Chaisson. And the guy that I'm going to comp him to, you know all about him. High motor. This guy plays with his hair on fire. You love guys that give you everything they've got on every single snap. Kayla Chaisson's one of those guys. So you go to his weaknesses. Has to play with more control and balance. Flybys on quarterbacks and loses balance trying to turn the corner. There's a frenetic pace to his play where he's just at all costs trying to get up the field, get to the quarterback. And because of that, he doesn't play with the kind of, he plays with reckless abandon, and it's not controlled chaos sometimes. It's just he's just OC sometimes. So he'll get a chance to get to the quarterback, but because he's moving at such a rapid pace, he'll fly by the quarterback. All the quarterback has to do is dip a shoulder or duck or just slightly slide up, and he'll go flying by because he's moving so fast. And then when he's trying to turn the corner, he's one of these guys that can bend the corner, but sometimes he's so low that he falls down on the ground and he's not able to then get to the quarterback. So he just needs to play with a little bit more balance. He needs to play under control a little bit more. And I think he'll be able to harness that at the next level as he gets more and more reps. Has to get better at shedding blocks. I think that's something he definitely can get better at. I don't think he is as good as he can be in the run game because of his lack of shedding blocks at this point. Needs to learn how to use his hands a little bit better. And again, these are all things that are going to come with more experience. Remember, this is a redshirt sophomore we're talking about. Not a lot of playing experience at LSU. So you're talking about a guy that's still developing as an edge rusher, as a defender. So I think he's going to get better at a lot of these things. Needs to put more of a rush plan together. Right now, he didn't have a toolbox that's full. He didn't have a Rolodex that has a bunch of items in it. I think he can get better at figuring out how to put together a rush plan, how to set guys up. I'm going speed now. I'm going speed again. Now I'm going with a spin move or a crossover. Now he's looking for the speed or he's looking for the crossover. He doesn't know what's coming. Now you go with the bull rush. He's all over the place. He's looking outside. He's looking inside. Now you just go straight at him. Like, you got to set guys up. I don't think he's at that point yet. He'll get there eventually, I believe. And then injury concerns. He tore his ACL the first game of 2018, so that's something on the Carfax that you need to be aware of. This guy does have a major knee injury in his past, but hopefully that's behind him. You're talking about a supremely gifted athlete and a real talent here that you were able to get at number 20. We talked about all the guys that were going to fall potentially in this draft, and he didn't fall very far, but he wasn't supposed to fall to 20. I can assure you of that, and you probably felt really fortunate to get your hands on the second best edge rusher in this draft behind Chase Young to me. And my player comp for him is Dante Fowler Jr., a guy you know all too well that played in the SEC just like Kayla Chaisson did, that was a menace off the edge just like Kayla Chaisson has the potential to be. So I think you're getting a supremely gifted athlete here. And remember, I think Dante Fowler Jr. also had an injury, a major knee injury in college at Florida. So similarities here are staggering. The talent here is undeniable. I love this selection for the Jaguars in the first round. And you already know what this is. You already know what this is. It's another 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first round as we move on to the third pick in this draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Second round, 42nd pick overall. Wide receiver out of Colorado, Laviska Shenault is the selection. This is a guy that I absolutely love here. Thought that this was a steal for you as well. There's only one concern for me here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but to get this guy that for much of the process was perceived to be a first-round pick in the second round, and not like the early stages where Jacksonville is normally selecting, but pretty much the mid, going in towards the midpoint of the second round. you got to feel like this is a win here. You know, the 10th pick of the second round to get this guy, I thought it was a big win for the Jaguars. And this is a guy that can be your #1 wide receiver. But I love what DJ Chark is doing for you. So if he turns out to be your #2 and Chark turns out to continue to develop and blossom into a #1, you got yourself a hell of a combination here with Laviska Shenault Jr. So 6'1", 227 wide receiver out of Colorado. The 4.5, 840, I think, scared some people away. That coupled with his injury history, I think is the reason why he's sitting here for you at 42. You look at his season stats, 56 catches for 764 yards and 4 touchdowns in 11 games, dealt with some injuries, as I mentioned. 23 rushes for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. They moved him all over the place. A lot of wildcat for him. So jet sweeps, things of that nature. They just got it into his hands because he's such a dynamic playmaker for them. Career stats, 149 grabs for 1,943 yards and 10 scores in 32 games. 42 rushes for 280 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, again, they used to just get it to him any way possible. First round grade for me. So, again, I feel like you got tremendous value here. Had him rated as my #5 receiver in this draft. And I'll give you my player comp for him a little bit later on. Size is his first strength. Really good size, well-built frame, man. He's a well-built guy at 6'1", damn near 230. So you're getting a physically built specimen here in Laviska Shenault. Physicality, that's his brand of football. That's the name of his game. It's the reason why they felt comfortable handing him the football, because he was like a running back when he had the football in his hands. He just plays a physical brand of football. They would give it to him on 4th and 1. Like, that was their guy. They didn't hand it to their running back. They handed it to Laviska Shenault, whether it was in a jet sweep or whether it was him taking a wildcat snap. That he was their go-to guy in 4th and short yardage situations. So physicality, definitely what he brings to the table. Athleticism, he can run. I think he plays faster than the timed 40 that he had. I kind of dismissed that because what I saw on tape was a guy that just played faster than 4.5, 8. You know, so I think he's got quickness. He's got speed. Those are all also strengths. And I think his speed is greater than the 4.5, 8. I just believe that wholeheartedly. His hands are A1. He can catch the football, can catch it in traffic. So these are all things that he brings to the table. Really strong hands. Run after the catch. Again, turns into a running back after catching the football. Gets really physical with guys. Let's get physical. So run after the catch is another thing that he brings to the table. Can make you miss. He's got the MYM factor as well. You see him get the football. He's not just brute force strength all the time. He also has a little bit of finesse to his game where he can break guys off and make them miss. Can high point the football. This is probably the thing I like about him the best, is that he's physical, he has strong hands, and he puts that all to good use. I talked about the athleticism earlier. Well, he can go up and get the football. He can make the quarterback right when he's wrong. And so he's one of those guys, you see one-on-one coverage 30 yards down the field, chuck it up there, give him a chance. He'll go and get it. He'll go and make a play for you. So love that as well with Laviska Shenault. And versatility, can line up just about anywhere. They put him everywhere on the field. All right, they split him out wide. They made him the flanker. He was in the slot. They used him in jet sweep. They used him in the backfield as a running back. They used him as a quarterback in the wildcat. They used him everywhere. Got him the football in every situation imaginable. So his versatility is something else the Jaguars need to take full advantage of. You get to his weaknesses. Route running needs refinery. They didn't run an extensive route tree at Colorado, as I mentioned. They just tried to get it to him. And so steady diets of hitches, comebacks, and go routes, you know, and slants. They kept it pretty simple. You didn't see a diet. You didn't see corners, post corners. You didn't see, you know, dig routes. You didn't see post corner post, you know, or corner post corner. Like, you didn't see him getting elaborate with what he was doing on the football field. And that's okay. He can get better at that. Production dropped off in 2019. There were a myriad of reasons why. First of all, I never loved his quarterbacking situation. Steven Montez was as inconsistent as it gets in college football for all the talent that he had at the quarterback position. It's part of the reason he wasn't drafted in 2020. But also, there were injuries too. You know, there were some things going on with Laviska Shenault. He played with a core muscle injury, had to have surgery in the offseason. So there are a bunch of reasons as to why there was a production dip. But still, I think this guy is a supremely gifted athlete and talent. Injury concerns. You cannot ignore the things that he's went through throughout his career. Had surgery on his labrum and toe before the 2019 season. Had core muscle surgery after the combine took place. Missed 4 games in the last 2 years, 3 of them coming in 2018. So, again, there's some stuff on the Carfax here. If you're able to check those out, you're comfortable with that. This is a really supremely gifted guy here. And my comp for him is Samuel Watkins. He looks like a splitting image of Sammy Watkins. Remember the physicality that Sammy Watkins played with the football in his hands. He could also make you miss. Sammy's probably a lot faster than him. I think that's the one thing you would take away. Sammy went and ran like a 4.39 or a 4.41 or whatever it was that he ran. Laviska Shenault didn't run that, but I think Laviska Chenault's capable of running like a 4.47. I think that's the kind of speed that I saw on tape. And so I have no worries, no doubts about his ability to get behind a defense and stretch it vertically. So to me, this is a steal here in the second round. The only reason that there is concern is because of the injuries. You cannot ignore them. And because of that, instead of this being a 5 like I really originally wanted to give it because I love the player so much, this is a 4. But I love this, and if he stays healthy, this is probably going to turn out to be a 5 for you. This is a steal in the second round. You should feel really fortunate that you were able to get your hands on a receiver the quality of a Laviska Shenault. As you get to the third round and we move on to the next selection, 73rd pick in this draft, defensive lineman out of The Ohio State University, Vaughn Hamilton is the selection. 6'4", 320 pounds, 33-inch arms, out of The Ohio State University. 2019 numbers look like this: 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 of which were sacks, no forced fumbles, no pass breakups in 14 games. Career stats: 21 tackles for loss, 7 of which were sacks, no forced fumbles, no pass breakups in 53 games. So those numbers should tell you a little something. If you didn't catch that, I'll break it down a little bit later on in his analysis. I had a day 3 grade on him. Thought he was a 4th or 5th round pick. So this is a little early for me in terms of Vaughn Hamilton. I thought that you're projecting here with him, and that's fine. That's part of the evaluation process in the draft, is that you take a guy based on how you perceive them moving forward, not where they are right now as a player at some points. Sometimes you take a guy for what he did in college, and sometimes you take a guy for what you think he's going to do at the next level, not so much what he was able to produce at the collegiate level. That's one of these picks here, because the production wasn't as great, and I'll tell you why a little bit later on, but I just feel like he was a day 3 guy. Personally, so I felt like this was a little bit of a reach. We'll see. He was my 9th defensive tackle overall in this draft, just to give you some perspective. So strengths: well-constructed frame. When you look at him, he's a well-built guy. He carries 320 pounds well. I mean, he looks like he's about 305, but he's carrying 320, and it looks good on him. So above average athleticism. He's a guy that can move, man. When you watch him, there's some flashes of brilliance on tape with him, and I understand why the Jaguars felt the need to pull the trigger on him in the third round at times when you watch him, and there are other times where you say there's just not enough here for him to be a day 2 pick. High motor. Whatever you say about him, you can't say that he doesn't hustle, that he doesn't play hard when he's on the field. It's balls to the wall. He's going until the tank is empty. Love that about him. Flashes of quickness into the backfield. I talked about those brief periods where you think about this guy and you look at him and say, okay, I see the day 2 pick here. And it's because of the quickness that he plays with, getting into the backfield. Had a high percentage of his tackles going for tackles for loss. So he plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and a lot of that can be attributed to his ability to use that quickness to knife into the backfield. Once freed up, he has good closing speed for a guy 320 pounds. I mean, his closing speed is ridiculous. He gets a sack on Trevor Lawrence in the national championship game. Chaisson kind of forces him to step up in the pocket. And here comes Vaughn Hamilton out of nowhere. And Lawrence, before he could really react, Vaughn Hamilton's on him in a heartbeat and sacks him. Like, that's the kind of closing burst that this guy has. When he gets an opportunity to open up, he gets there in a hurry. Executes twists and stunts very well. He's one of those guys. I talked about Kayla Chaisson being a master at stunts inside. Well, this is a guy that you can have looping outside on that twist, and they can, in unison together, really probably make beautiful music together because he executes them well. So does Kayla Vaughn, Chaisson. You put them on the same side and you run some games with those guys, and they could probably do some work together. So interesting combination that you can probably put together there. You get to his weaknesses. No one trait really stands above the rest. You could argue that his quickness and his closing ability may be his best traits, but not to the point where you're excited and feeling like, man, we got ourselves an elite caliber guy here because of those things. Not physically imposing, like he's not going to collapse the pocket with his frame. At 320, you'd like to see him be a little bit more physical in terms of being able to jack a guy up and collapse the pocket. And there's some times where he generates a little bit of movement and collapse in the pocket, but it's not often enough. Doesn't really have elite quickness. It's good quickness off the snap. He can win with it consistently, but it's not something that, again, has him standing out above the rest, you know, and doesn't really use his length. And he's got 33-inch arms. That's good length for an interior defensive lineman, especially one his size at 6'4". I'd like to see, and that's part of the reason his bull rush isn't as successful, is because he's not using his length to his advantage. He's got to be able to get off first, use his hands, use his length. And I think if he can maximize his length, it will really benefit him moving forward. Doesn't seem to be a true difference maker as a pass rusher. I think that's going to be the difference between him potentially becoming a starter or a quality first-rate backup in this league, or him just being another guy, just a Jag, essentially, just a guy. If he can't find a way to establish himself in this league as a legitimate threat to get to the quarterback from the defensive tackle position, he's just a guy. All right. No rush moves at this point. Like he's not, there's no secondary spin. There's no latch and snatch. There's nothing extra there. He either wins with quickness or he doesn't, period. End of discussion. Defensive coordinators have to create for him right now. And what I mean by that is they got to call twists and stunts. They got to create things where it's an overload blitz to his side and he comes free. Like they've got to create pressure for him and create opportunities for him to get to the quarterback. He can't create on his own. That's got to change. He eats off of others around him. He got 6 sacks last year. I guarantee you 4 or 5 of them came because of the talent around him. Chaisson flushing the quarterback right into his lap. You know, Chaisson being blocked by 3 defenders and, oh shit, we forgot to block Vaughn Hamilton. That actually happened versus Wisconsin, where 3 guys are blocking Chaisson and nobody blocks Vaughn Hamilton. And you're like, really? You're just going to allow this guy to run free? So he ate off of other guys around him. Can he eat by himself when he's not being fed? And 1 year of true production at Ohio State. I talked about us talking about that later. Most of his career stats came in 2019. Why? Because he couldn't get on the field consistently in a deep defensive line. He wasn't good enough. He was a key reserve, but he wasn't getting the snaps that other guys were getting. He wasn't getting starters reps. That didn't come until 2019. So that should tell you how far down the totem pole he was throughout his career. But he did make his lone season at Ohio State as the starter count. All right. 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. But he's not impacting the game in other ways. No forced fumbles. More importantly, no pass breakups. Again, you're 6'4", and 33-inch arms. Can you get your hands in the passing lane and bat down a ball or two? I just never understand when guys aren't producing numbers in the PBU department when you're a bigger guy. When you're north of 6'3", and you've got 32-inch arms or longer, you need to be impacting the game in other ways. Most notably, getting your hands on footballs, deflections, pass breakups. Knock the football down. You're not getting there. If you're Vaughn Hamilton, you're not getting to the quarterback a ton. Get your damn hands up. So, anyway, my comp for him is Steve McClendon. Draft pick of the Steelers once upon a time, is with the Jets right now. A quality interior defensive lineman, but not a guy that necessarily moves the needle all that much. And that's what I see for Vaughn Hamilton. In the 3rd round, 73rd pick overall, Vaughn Hamilton for me is a 3. All right, as we move on to the next pick in this draft, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 4th round, 116th overall selection. Offensive lineman out of St. John's by way of Minnesota. Ben Bartch is the pick. And this is a really intriguing pick here with a lot of upside. But again, this is a projection pick. You don't really know. And I don't know what they have in mind for him. I'm thinking right now they look at him as a guard. Because they have tackles. They just drafted Jamar Taylor, a season ago or so. So he's your right tackle. I don't know how they feel about Cam Robinson. Maybe they feel like they can upgrade left tackle, and that's the purpose for drafting Ben Bartch and maybe developing over time. And in 2 years, he's ready to take over as left tackle when Cam Robinson's rookie deal is up, because he was a 2nd-round pick, so there's no 5th-year option there. I don't know. I'm just talking. He could be a guard in their mind. He could be a tackle. I think they drafted him with the thought process of, let's try him at tackle first. And if we like what we see, we're going to continue to develop him. And when we feel like the time is right, we're going to stick him in at tackle. Or they could say, you know what? He's a guard at this level. Let's kick him inside. He's got athleticism. We like him, and we'll move forward with him there. We'll see what happens. But 14 games in 2019, 14 starts at left tackle, 27 games in his career, 27 starts at left tackle. So not a lot of experience. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I had a 4th-round grade on him. So this is the perfect spot to take a guy like Ben Bartch. And he was my 12th rated tackle in this draft. So I thought you got good value in terms of where you got him. Strengths. Big 6'6" frame. You got to like that right off the bat. You got to like the length that this guy has. And when I say length, I shouldn't say length. You should like his height. At 6'6", that's the going rate. That's the kind of size you like for your tackles. And so he's got a good frame. And that frame allowed him to add a bunch of mass. We'll talk about that here shortly. Great athleticism and movement skills. This is a guy that was a former tight end. Going to college at St. John's, and then transitioned from tight end to offensive tackle after before the 2018 season. So his first 2 years, he was a tight end. And then after the 2017 season, he decided to convert over to tackle, and he had to put on a bunch of weight. 75 pounds, in fact, is how much weight he ultimately ended up putting on throughout those final 2 years at St. John's. Almost 100 pounds difference since he stepped on campus. It's insane. Okay, so that transition was a big one for him, and he made it really seamlessly. So he kept that athleticism that he had as a tight end as he transformed and morphed his body into a tackle. So really good movement skills, and you see it from him. Effortless kick slide with flawless posture. He's being taught well in that department. He's erect like this. His back is straight. Hands are out. The kick slide is beautiful. One of the best ones you'll see in this particular year's draft. He gets out of his stance, out of the blocks, and he's ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll. Hands are ready to go. It looks good, man. All of that looks really solid. I mean, they did a really good job of showing him the fundamentals from that standpoint. Explosive movements shoot him out of his stance and into the 2nd level. So when he's looking to get to the 2nd level in the run game, oh man, he gets up there quick. He eats up a ton of ground just like that. I mean, from snap to handoff, he's already at the linebacker. He's ready to do work at the 2nd level. So his movement skills off the charts. Generates movement in the run game on down blocks. So he's a guy that when he blocks, and again, keep in mind, level of competition. We're going to see just how well he's able to generate movement at the next level when he's dealing with grown men, because he was playing with boys at St. John's. Okay, you watch him on tape against St. Thomas, and he's dominating these guys and moving them over a gap and a half. Yeah, sure. Okay, it's St. Thomas. All right, but how will he do against grown men? I want to see. But on down blocks, I mean, he was clearing guys out a full 2 gaps. I mean, he was taking that guy on a double team on a down block and just washing him and completely opening up a whole side for the running back. So he generates movement in the run game. Lateral agility is present when and it aids in his mirroring. So when you talk about a guy being able to mirror, it's the rabbit drill at the combine where you stay in front of a guy, you don't touch him, but you just kind of do whatever he's doing, kind of shadow him, and you're mirroring him. He does it really well, man. Stays in front of guys, and I love the fact that he's able to do it so cleanly. There's no hitch in his giddy up. It's just so smooth. He's such an athlete. Nice step, rapid jolting punches. And so I talked about his hands being in the ready position, and boom, boom, boom. He's able to get them out very rapidly, and they're stiff punches, the kind that knock guys off balance and keep them at bay. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. This is Mount Union he's playing against. It's St. Thomas he's playing against. Keep in mind the level of competition we're talking about here. So, will he be able to do that consistently? All of these things to me translate, so we'll see. Weaknesses. For all the work he's done to get his body where it is, he's still going to have to get stronger. He's got a lean frame at 6'6", 309, and it looks good, but it's not strong enough. He's got to get functionally stronger, and I think he will. You get into the Jaguars strength and conditioning program, he'll put on another 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. He'll get stronger, and I think you'll see a difference in him there. But you see it when guys get into his body. He struggles a little bit in anchoring down when guys are able to get into his frame. Will lunge and lose balance at times when he becomes impatient as a pass protector. I love the fact that this guy is so athletic. He's so sturdy in terms of his posture and the way he looks. But sometimes he gets over anxious and wanting to get in the action. And sometimes as a tackle, I've always said, don't expend energy that is unnecessary as a tackle, because unlike a receiver or a running back that can tap out, you don't come out of the game. So if a guy is dancing around and he doesn't want to actually come up the field, don't go after him. Let him stay there. He can't hurt you where he's standing, okay? So don't go after a guy and go lunging and reaching and throw yourself off balance trying to go after a guy. If he doesn't want the smoke, let him stay right where he is. And so he's just got to learn. Don't expend energy that's not necessary. He's not a nasty boy. If you're looking for a guy that's going to put somebody's dick in the dirt, you got the wrong guy. He's not looking to drive a guy into the turf and then pancake him, put a little extra syrup on top. That's not his thing. If he's done his job, he's cool with that. If he's blocked a guy initially and the play goes away from him, that guy's free to go running, and that guy may ultimately make a tackle on a running back cutting back. He does not sustain his blocks long enough for me. He's not nasty. And again, as long as he's doing his job, I'm fine with that. You don't have to be nasty to do your job adequately, but you'd like your offensive lineman to be nasty. That's not who Ben Bartch is. He's still got the mentality of a tight end. Inexperienced and level of competition. That goes without saying. I don't want to harp on that too much. I've already talked about the fact that he played at Division III St. John's, but you can't omit that, okay? And only 2 years of experience at tackle. I talked about him being a tight end for the first 2 years of his career, so that's also something you have to take into consideration. Only 27 starts, so he's got a long way to go in his developmental process, but you gotta like what this guy's become in such a short period of time. I really like this pick. I think there is a lot of upside here, but again, it's upside, so you have to be careful with that, and because of that, to me, Ben Bartch in the 4th round is a 3. All right, so we move on to the next selection in this draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's in the 4th round, 137th overall. A cornerback out of Michigan State. Josiah Scott is the pick. First and foremost, never ever trust a man with 2 first names. That being said, man, I really like Josiah Scott. They call him the Gnat, okay, for his pesky brand of football. And really, when you get a nickname like the Gnat, it means you're short. It means that you're pestering people. You're short, and they want you to get the hell out of here, but you just don't go away. And that's pretty much Josiah Scott in a nutshell. 5'9", $185, 4.42, 40, so the guy can absolutely fly. Season stats: no tackles for loss, no sacks, 1 forced fumble, 7 pass breakups, 3 INTs in 13 games. So you're talking about a guy, serious ball production, 3 interceptions in 13 games. But get this: 2 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 24 pass breakups, and 7 INTs in just 30 games. So you're talking about a guy that gets his hands on the football over 1 time a game. That's insane. All right. That's such a high clip. It's ridiculous. And let me just tell you this. I had a late day 2 to early day 3 grade on Josiah Scott. So this is tremendous value. And I'll take it a step further. If Josiah Scott's 5'11". If he's 6 feet, he's a first-round pick. That's how good he is. The reason that he is here for you in the 4th round is only one thing. He's 5'9", 185, okay? If this guy were I'd venture to say if this guy were 5'11", he'd be a first-round pick. That's how good he is. But he's 5'9", and there's no way of getting around that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, and I'll give you my comp as well. Strengths. He's a ball-hawking beast. That's the first thing you see with him. 7 career interceptions, but 24 pass breakups. He's getting his hands on the football. And if you make a mistake around Josiah Scott, you're going to pay for it. That's why you can't trust a man with 2 first names, because he's going to make you pay. Explosive burst out of his back pedal. His plant and drive is tremendous. When he sees it and he shoots his gun, you better look out. All right. He's coming with very, very big time intentions of getting his hands on the football. Effortless, fluid movements around the field, his transitions, his back pedal, his ability to mirror the wide receiver. All of these things are so clean and effortless. Speed. He can run, folks. I talked about the 4.42. He kept up with KJ Hamler of Penn State, stride for stride, right in his hip pocket, right in phase with KJ Hamler. Not many guys in the Big Ten, not many guys in college football could say that they were able to keep up with KJ Hamler. To me, KJ Hamler and Henry Ruggs, they were just on a different level in terms of their speed. They just look different when they run. And Josiah Scott was right there with him, was having none of it deep. All right, so this guy can run. Stays in phase downfield. I just talked about that. This is a guy that has no problem staying in the hip pocket of a receiver 20, 30, 40, 50 yards down the field if need be. He's an ankle biter, but he tackles his ass off. Look, and at 5'9", $185, I wouldn't have it any other way. He's an ankle biter. No doubt about it. He's shooting cuffs. He's not looking to size anybody up. He's not looking to go through your chest. He's looking to go right down to your ankles and get you down. But guess what? He gets your ass on the ground more times than not. I feel really confident knowing that Josiah Scott's back there. If somebody catches a football or if somebody runs to his side, he's going to get him on the ground. I feel really confident in saying that. So his weaknesses, his size. There's no way around it. He's 5'9", $185. And he's going to have to play the slot. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. As much as I like his talents and would like to see him get an opportunity on the boundary, he's too damn small. And I'll give you a great example. I'm watching him versus Wisconsin, and the receiver just puts him on his hip. And Josiah Scott's in perfect position. He can't play this ball any better. It's a simple, about a 10-yard dig route to the inside, and he's right there. I mean, he's on his ass. And the ball's put in a position where the receiver's able to box him out. And poor Josiah Scott's like getting sunned. Like, it's almost like the receiver has his hand on his face, and he's like this, and he can't reach. He's trying to swipe at the ball, and the guy just puts his ass in his face and boxes him out. And Josiah Scott's reaching, and he doesn't have enough length. He can't get there. And I said to myself, if that's Jeff Okudah, or if that's your first-round pick, C.J. Henderson, that's a knockdown. That's a pass breakup. But he just didn't have the size and the length. He just couldn't get around that defender. So you can't ignore the lack of size. Injury concerns. This is a guy that had meniscus surgery in 2018, and it cost him 8 games. So that's on the Carfax. Have to keep that in mind. He gets stuck on blocks. Look, he's 5'9", $185. I mean, he fights his ass off to try to get off of these blocks, but sometimes he just can't. And it is what it is. Now, this is the thing that kind of pissed me off watching him. And not much pissed me off when watching him, but he makes some questionable decisions sometimes. And the Ohio State game stuck out for me. So this is a game that Michigan State is battling their ass off. It's wet. It's a nasty day. They're hanging tough. Like that first quarter, they shut Ohio State's offense down. And going into halftime, they're trailing by 7. It's 17-10. Ohio State's deep in their own territory late in the first half. You're talking about less than a minute to go in the first half. And I think Ohio State's content with going to the halftime locker room and break with a 7-point lead. And then J.K. Dobbins breaks off this big run out of nowhere. And Josiah Scott hawks him down, and he's going to catch him at about the 29-yard line or so. And for some inexplicable reason, he decides he's going to try to poke the football free instead of making a tackle. And he gives me this half-assed, feeble attempt at trying to bolo punch the ball out. He falls down on the ground, and J.K. Dobbins takes off and scores about a 65-yard touchdown run. And it was so odd because he had an easy opportunity. J.K. Dobbins not running away from him. J.K. Dobbins not a burner. He had that. He's a 4-4 guy. He was walking him down. He could have went up and jumped on his back if he wanted to. He was that close. And he gives me this bullshit-ass bolo punch. Are you serious? And falls down and lets him walk into the end zone? You don't know what's going to happen. It's a wet day. The next snap could go right over the head of the quarterback, and he tries to pick it up, doesn't fall on it, and your guy scoops it up and runs for a touchdown on the next play. You don't know what's going to happen. It's a wet day. Stop him. Don't do that. The only time you do something like that is if it's the end of the game and if they get a first down, the game's over, and he already has the first down, and the only way that you can get back into the game is by forcing a turnover, then you go for the football in that instance. But not right before halftime and you're only down 7. That essentially, for all intents and purposes, busts that game wide open. They score that touchdown. It gets to 24-10. They get the football after halftime. They score again. It's 31-10. The game's over. That's bullshit. You can't do that. So that to me is low IQ football, okay? That's low IQ, and I don't consider Josiah Scott a low IQ guy, all right? So I need him to make better decisions is essentially what I'm saying. But outside of that, man, I love this pick. I comp him to Avonte Maddox coming out of Pitt. High ball production, similar size, similar weight, undersized cornerback that had explosive and twitchy traits, but had a bunch of ball production. I see the same thing in Josiah Scott, man. I like this guy a lot. And for me, this is a 4, man. I really like him as a ball player. If he were bigger, this would be probably a 5, and he would be no worse than a second-round pick, probably a first-round pick, because he's that good. But we move on to the next selection in this Jaguars draft. Jaguars had a bunch of 4th-rounders, so we're still in the 4th round, folks. This is the 3rd 4th-round pick here. 140th overall, linebacker out of the U. Shaq Quarterman is the pick. 6 feet, 234-pound linebacker here. Ran a 4.7, 4.40, so speed is not his calling card. 15.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 5 pass breakups, no interceptions in 13 games. 46.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 13 pass breakups, 1 interception in 52 games. It's a lot of ball production in terms of pass breakups and an interception for a guy that lacks speed. So that tells you something about the instincts and the film study that Shaq Quarterman is putting in throughout the course of the week. I had a 5th round grade on Shaq Quarterman. It's a little early for me, a little too early for me, but this is the thing. And I talked about this at the top of the draft. I talked about it early in the draft when you selected Kayla Vaughn Chaisson. I'm talking about it again because this is the theme of the draft. High character guys. Guys that are going to bring leadership qualities in the locker room. You know, when the Jaguars were at their best, inside at the linebacker position, you had Paul Posluszny. He was the unquestioned leader of that defense. Guys looked to him. I remember when he retired, announced his retirement, the effusive praise that came from his teammates that looked at him as the unquestioned leader of that defense. And when he left, I think a lot of the leadership qualities, a lot of the leadership left out of the locker room. A lot of the accountability left from the locker room. And I kind of felt like things started to fall apart on the defensive side of the football when Paul Posluszny left. You're now replacing that with a guy with similar qualities in Shaq Quarterman. Similar athleticism, similar hard hat mentality, lunch pail, hard hat kind of guy, and same leadership qualities. This is a guy that was a 4-year starter at Miami, the first guy to do it since Dan Morgan back in 1998. All right, so this guy walked on campus and immediately was a starter and didn't look back. And so I think don't discount that the Jaguars were looking for those kind of guys in this particular draft. Strengths, sheer physicality. That's his game, okay? It's just being physical. Sometimes to a fault, sometimes to his detriment, but he's a physical guy. Always around the action. Shaq Quarterman's always looking for the party. Where the party at? He's always looking to get involved. He wants to know where the party at. Hey, which one of y'all got the Bacardi, man? He's trying to get in the party. All right. Downhill thumper who looks for the party. I just talked about him. He wants to know where the party's at, man. Wherever it is, that's where he wants to be. So he's not afraid of contact. He's looking and embraces contact, looking for it. He wants to know where the party's at. Plays aggressively at all times. Look, a wise man once told me, whether you're right or wrong, just do it aggressively, okay? I don't care if you're right. I don't care if you're wrong. I want you to be right. I'd prefer you to be right. But whether you're right or wrong, just do it 110 miles an hour, and I can take that. That's Shaq Quarterman. And he's wrong a lot. Excuse me. He guesses wrong a ton, but you know what he does? He guesses wrong aggressively. He's the three abilities. I call it accountability, durability, and availability. He's all of those things. Did not miss a single game in his collegiate career. All right. 52 games up, 52 games down for Shaq Quarterman. So the availability is there. He's durable. In order to play in 52 games, you got to be durable. All right. And he's accountable. You know that when Shaq Quarterman's on the field, you can count on him to do his job, to do his assignment, to be where he's supposed to be. All right. There's a level of accountability. And if he's not, he'll be the first to tell you that was my mistake. I effed up there. I'll be better next time. Team leader and 4-year starter, tons of experience. Again, do not discount that. Active in the pass game, which is surprising for a guy running a 4.7, 4.40. You wouldn't expect 13 pass breakups in his career with an interception. That's generally not what you get when a guy is slow of foot. And he's slow of foot, and you see it on film. So he has to play proactively. He can't be reactionary. He won't get there in time. So you see a lot of him guessing and getting to the spot first because he has to. Weaknesses, athleticism or lack thereof. He's just not fast. He just doesn't have that ability. It's just not in his DNA. And he tries so hard, but it's just not there. Over-aggression leads to broken GPS often. So what I mean by broken GPS is if you do a fake stretch to the weak side, oh, Shaq Quarterman's out there in a hurry. I mean, yabba dabba doo, he's out there, and that quarterback's pulling that ball back and booting to the right. Shaq Quarterman can't get back into play. He's already, outside of the D gap. He can't help you at this point. So too many times that he gets fooled. And again, he goes off for first movement, and he has to. He can't afford to wait, and he knows that, which is why he plays the game the way that he does. But because of that, he's out of position quite often, and his GPS can be broken at times. Sometimes too preoccupied with delivering damage to blocker instead of shedding him. Too many times that fullback comes to lead block and get to Shaq Quarterman, and all Shaq Quarterman cares about is putting this guy on his ass. Letting him know that, dude, you don't want this. You don't want this smoke. And so instead of him trying to make a play, he's depleting that fullback. Well, the fullback doesn't care because you're out of the play. He's done his job. You may have put him on his ass, but you're not making a tackle. So he's done his job. And sometimes he just needs to understand what the job and task at hand is. And he does. He's a 100 tackle type of guy. So he understands what his job is. But sometimes he just wants to inflict pain and punishment. And I'm like, I could do without that sometimes. Strictly a 2-down linebacker. Even though the production on the ball is there from a pass standpoint with the 13 PBUs, you don't want this guy on the field. And Jacksonville's done a pretty good job of drafting athletically gifted linebackers like the Williams kid last year, Quincy Williams. You got enough athletes, Miles Jack and all those guys that are there that you don't need him on the field in obvious passing situations. So to me, he's a 2-down linebacker strictly, and that's okay. That's what he is. He's Reggie Ragland to me. Think Reggie Ragland when you think of Shaq Quarterman. A downhill thumper, physical in the run game. Going to get everybody aligned, set up where they need to be, a leader on and off the field, the kind of guy you want in your locker room. And because of those leadership qualities, Shaq Quarterman for me is a 3. It's the kind of guy the Jaguars are looking for. They're looking to remake this locker room and give themselves an identity on the defensive side of the football again. That's their calling card. That's who they are. They're a defensive football team. They need leaders. They need their new Paul Posluszny. I think they've gotten it here in Shaq Quarterman. So we move on from that selection, and we finally get out of the 4th round and move on to the 5th round. 157th pick overall, safety out of Auburn. Daniel Thomas is the pick. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, I love Daniel Thomas more so than most people do. That's just a bit of a it's just a bit of a warning to you, all right? And I'll just throw that out there right now. So if I gush a bit, you know why. 5.5 tackles for loss, no sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup, no interceptions in 13 games. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, he doesn't impact the game all that much. Oh, au contraire, my friend, okay? 9 tackles for loss, no sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 8 pass breakups, 5 INTs, and a pick 6 in his career in 51 games. So, and oh, by the way, this guy ran a 4.51, so he can run. All right, so, and you see it when he gets a chance to open up. I had a 4th round grade to a 5th round grade. Anywhere from the 4th to the 5th round, I was comfortable. I was a little rambunctious with him. So, you know, I was thinking 4th round, but 5th round is probably where he should have gone. And it's where you decided to take him. So I thought you got good value here. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. But strengths, he's got a stout, thick frame. You know, when you see a 5'10" guy that's 215, that's a really nice, compact frame. You know, generally 5'10" guys at the safety position are like 205, you know, right around 200 pounds. They look like a cornerback. He looks like a safety. He's 215. He's thickly built. He looks the part. The kind of guy that you're not afraid to have in the box because you feel like he'll be able to stand up and make some plays. Gets the job done as a tackler. I love this guy. Love him as a tackler. He just gets the job done. Sometimes it's physical and aggressive. Other times it's just him getting a guy on the ground. I just love it. I just love it. Has above average straight line speed. I talked about the 4.51 40. When he gets to open up, and you see it when he's got a guy man to man and they swing it to him out in the flats and he gets to just come downhill. Man, is Daniel Thomas in his element when he's coming downhill as a tackler. Man, I love it. Against Minnesota, they throw a swing route to a tight end in the flats, and he just destroys him for a tackle for loss. They do it against Alabama to him, where they run. I want to say it was Jerry Jeudy. It might have been Jerry Jeudy. And they throw it to Jerry Jeudy. They run him in motion all the way across the formation, and Jerry Jeudy comes to the other side, and they swing it to him in the flats, and Daniel Thomas just eats him up for about a 3-yard loss. And that's Daniel Thomas in a nutshell. A guy that is at his best at or around the line of scrimmage, coming downhill as an aggressive defender. Plays with controlled aggression and does some good things when coming downhill. I kind of just spoke to that. Has ball skills when in the right position. Look, he's not always in the right position, but when he is, you know, sort of like the Dos Equis guy. He doesn't always drink beer, but when he does, he drinks Dos Equis. When he's not always in the right position, but when he does, he's making plays on the football. Has some value as an underneath coverage defender. He's one of those guys that just has a knack for being around the football, does some good things underneath, can plant and drive on the football really well. The further he gets away from the line of scrimmage, the further he is further a fish out of water and more of a liability, which we'll get to here in a second. Speaking of which, weaknesses. Loses speed once he has to change directions. His transitions are not all that fluid. So again, that's part of the reason you want him in underneath coverage close to the line of scrimmage. You don't want him running down the field because, you know, 30 yards down the field, if he's got a transition, it could get ugly. The further down the field you get, the later he arrives to the party. He's another one of these guys that likes to come to the party. But like Shaq Quarterman, he can show up late to the party at times. And the further away from the line of scrimmage you are, the more of a liability he becomes. So again, I like my Daniel Thomas down by the line of scrimmage. That's just the way it is. And I think you got a guy in Ronnie Harrison that can play away from the line of scrimmage. So I think these guys can complement one another. Plays with extreme confidence in and around the line of scrimmage, doesn't play with the same aggressiveness away from it. I think sometimes he gets a little nervous, starts to doubt himself a bit as he gets further away from the line of scrimmage. And so, again, I'm just hammering the point home yet again that I like my Daniel Thomas up by the line of scrimmage. I don't know about you, but I like my Daniel Thomas up around the line of scrimmage. My comp for him is Khari Willis, the safety that the Colts took last year in the draft out of Michigan State. I like Daniel Thomas more than I liked Khari Willis last year, but I think Daniel Thomas does some good things. And so for me, Daniel Thomas is surprisingly for some of you a 4. I really like this guy, man. And I really think ultimately in the 5th round, you're not looking for starters. You may have gotten yourself a starter down the road here in Daniel Thomas. We move on to the next selection in this draft. Still in the 5th round, 165th pick overall. Texas wide receiver Colin Johnson is the pick. This is a big guy, 6'6", 222 pounds. Did not run an official 40, bypassed the 40 at the combine. He knew he was going to run slow. He was hiding at the combine. And so, look, when you watch him on tape, he does have some opportunities to get behind guys and does, but he doesn't separate. I put in my notes anywhere from 4.57 to 4.64. He's probably closer to 4.64 than he is 4.57. If I had to nail down a time, I'd say he's a 4.61, 4.62 guy, somewhere in there. Anyway, 38 catches for 559 yards and 3 scores in 7 games in 2019. He battled through some injuries, hamstring most notably in 2019. 188 catches for 2,624 yards and 15 scores in 45 games in his career. So there was some production there, but never eclipsed 1,000 yards in his career at Texas. Some of that could probably be attributed to the quarterback play as well. I had a 5th round grade on him, so this is right around the time you take a Colin Johnson. And he's got something you can't teach. So there is an attribute that does stand out here, and we'll get to it right away in his strengths. And that's ridiculous size and length. His catch radius off the charts. So he's one of those guys. I talked about Laviska Shenault, you just being able to throw it up to. DJ Chark is another guy with size, 6'3", 6'4", you could throw it up to. Well, now you got another guy that you can just throw the football up to and have him go and get it in Colin Johnson. And he showed the propensity at Texas to go and get the football away from his frame. So I actually think, and I know some people think that he doesn't have great body control. I beg to differ. He contorts his body, goes up and gets the football in weird angles and comes away with it. There's one catch against TCU, ridiculous. He's got 1 foot, you know, the rules are different in college. All you need is 1 foot down. And he's got 1 foot inbounds and he's stretching like, you know, Stretch Armstrong. He's got half his body like 2-3 yards out of bounds, and he catches the football, keeps 1 foot in bounds. It's just insane. He's got tremendous body control. Surprised by how smooth his release was and how he created leverage on routes up the field. You know, if I'm a guy checking Colin Johnson, I'm going to lay my hands on him because I'm not afraid of his speed. You know, so I'm going to try to disrupt him at the line of scrimmage. But when you give him a free release, he's got this nice little, smooth little shimmy at the top of his route that allows him to set up and create leverage. I was shocked. I was like, Colin, is that you? I was really taken aback because it's smooth. He glides off the line, and then he gives you an outside-inside shake, a little shimmy, and it's all fluid within the confines of the route. And then he bends it, so now he's got all the inside leverage he needs to get inside, and now he's got the guy beat because he's got his body now, and now he can shield you. it was clean, and I saw him do it multiple times. And it was so much fun to watch him battle a first-round cornerback in Jeff Gladney. That battle that they had in that game, TCU versus Texas, oh my God, Colin Johnson and Jeff Gladney were going at it. Man, it was fun to watch. Physical at the point of catch. He's a big guy. He doesn't separate, so he's got to be physical at the point of catch. So he's going to get called for OPI. He got called for OPI in that game versus Jeff Gladney in the end zone, pushing off. And he did not argue because he knew he pushed off. But he's going to use his length, and he's got to learn how to use his frame a little bit better. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's physical at the point of catch. He can catch it in traffic. You better be able to when you're not separating. He can. Good hands and ability to high point the football. That's going to be his saving grace at the NFL level. If he's going to stick in this league and he's going to be a consistent contributor, he better be able to go up and get the football. That's going to be the thing that keeps him around and keeps him having value to a team. Will work for food. He blocks in the run game. All right. He lays hands on guys, is physical with them. And at 6'6", 222, you better be physical. NFL bloodlines. His dad played in the league for a decade as a decorated corner. So there are NFL bloodlines coursing through his veins as well. Weaknesses. He has to master what it means to be a big wide receiver. I don't think he quite understands that his size is his ticket to being dominant at the next level. Some guys understand that my size is my best attribute and I have to use it, and others don't. And he's one of those guys that I think he knows he's big, but I don't think he knows how to utilize the fact that he's big. He should be leaning on guys like a tight end does. He should be using his size to box guys out. Doesn't always do a great job of doing that. There was one play where Jeff Gladney is able to come across his body and knock the football. Man, if you don't put your ass on Jeff Gladney and box him the hell out, like, bro, what do you think your little ass is doing? Jeff Gladney's 5'10". Ain't no way a 5'10" is a DB getting around my 6'6" frame and getting his hands on his ball. Are you kidding me? My entire body's going to block him out like the sun, okay? He's got to learn how to use his body better and learn what it means to be big. You're a big dude. That's your ticket. That's your meal ticket. Separation is hard to come by. Lots of contested catches. That's just what you're going to have to deal with Colin Johnson. He's not going to separate. That's not his thing. Lacks game-changing speed. I don't think he's a difference maker speed-wise, but you've got guys on the team that can run. So he doesn't have to do that. That's not going to be the niche he carves out for himself. He's going to be a 50-50, go up and get it type of guy. In the red zone, throw up a fade to him and watch him go get it. That's going to be his calling card at the next level. Injury concerns. I talked about the hamstring injury that cost him 6 games in 2019. That's on the Carfax, just something to consider. But my comp for him is Joe Juravicious. Some of you may not remember Joe Juravicious, once upon a time drafted by the New York Giants out of Penn State. Probably had his best football in Tampa Bay, helped them win a Super Bowl championship back in 2002. Joe Juravicious was a very productive NFL wide receiver with a big body and a big frame and could go up and get the football. So I liken him to Joe Juravicious, and for me, Colin Johnson is a 3. There is a role that he can play at the next level, and I think he just has to learn how to play that role a little bit better. You go to the next pick in this draft, 6th round, 189th pick overall, quarterback out of Oregon State, Jake Luton is the pick, 6'6", 224. Honestly, I didn't have a draftable grade on him. I didn't think he was going to be selected. A late round draft pick here. I think the Jaguars got a little cute here. You're trying to catch lightning in a bottle 2 years in a row. You were able to catch it with Minshew Magic last year. You're not going to do the same thing. I don't think. I could be wrong. And Jake Luton might turn out to be a tremendous backup quarterback for you. But I don't think that's what's happening here. But what's crazy is you got the perfect mentor for him on the squad, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But passing in 2019, 222 passes for 222 completions with 358 attempts for a 62% completion percentage for 2,714 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 3 INTs in 11 games. So that's something to consider. Strengths, excellent size. He's 6'6", guys. So it's tremendous size. And he's the polar opposite of Gardner Minshew, who's like 6 feet, 6'1" at best. But his size, you saw it play a role in games like Arizona. Watching him against Arizona and the pockets collapsing on him, he can barely follow through on his throw, but because he's 6'6", he can see over the tackle that's getting bull rushed into his lap. And he can throw over the top of that guy and ends up throwing a BB to his tight end wide open in the end zone for about a 35-yard touchdown. So his size definitely plays a role. NFL caliber arm. You say what you want about Jake Luton, and there's a lot of things you can say about Jake Luton. The one thing you can't say is that he doesn't have an arm. He's got a cannon. He's got a rifle, and he can deliver the football. Any part of the football field you want it delivered, he can take it there. And he's got an NFL caliber arm for sure. Quiet, balanced feet and platform that he throws from. I like his mechanics for the most part, man. They're clean. You know, his feet are quiet. He's not all, herky-jerky in the pocket. He's not happy feet back there. Feet get back there. It's quiet. He's got a good throwing platform, good base. That's why he's able to get so much velocity on his balls that he throws paws. I mean, that's good stuff there from him. Takes care of the football. 3 interceptions. Last season, only like 7 in his entire career. So he doesn't turn it over very often. He'll throw it out of bounds in a heartbeat. Now, that's something he'll definitely do versus taking a sack or throwing an interception. Worked in a pro-style offense. And that's one of the things you get from Jake Luton that you don't get from a ton of collegiate quarterbacks is a lot of him under center working, getting to, his landmark to the running back, handing it off, going play action fake, turning his back to the defense and, 7-step drops and things of that nature. You got to see him work in a actual pro-style offense. Throws with anticipation and timing. So that's another thing I like out of Jake Luton as well. His weaknesses, limited mobility. He had a very scary spinal cord injury that cost him most of 2017, 8 games. And he lost his job because of that injury. And so he missed the first 5 games, essentially, of the 2018 season. He didn't get his job back till like the 8th game of the 2018 season. So after that, he kind of lost confidence in moving around. He got it back a bit more in 2019. But when you watch him in 2018, he wasn't as mobile and he wasn't as comfortable running around. He was a deer in headlights at one point, but he's got limited mobility. He's actually a better athlete than you see when he runs around, but he's just not a guy that's going to run away from people, and he doesn't extend plays. Speaking of which, not comfortable throwing on the move or under duress. He's just, you can tell, very uncomfortable. When he sees a flash of color that's not his own, he's very, very uncomfortable and uneasy. So that's not his thing. He's the opposite of Gardner Minshew in that capacity. Struggled against the best, and this is my biggest knock on Jake Luton. He struggled against the best competition the Pac-12 had to offer. In the 2 games against ranked opponents in 2019, in Utah and Washington, these were his stats. 36 of 62, which is a 58% completion percentage, for 219 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 INTs. He only threw 3 all season, and 2 of them came in the 2 most important games of the season. He just struggled against elite competition, and so I struggle with that personally. So he started his career at Idaho, couldn't get on the field there. Then he transferred to a JUCO before landing at Oregon State. So that's also something. You can't get on the field at Idaho, bruh. Like, I know I'm nitpicking, but I'm just not a Jake Luton guy. And there's a reason why I didn't have a draftable grade on him is because I didn't think he was getting drafted. And in the 6th round, 189th pick overall, quarterback Jake Luton for me is a 2. As the Jaguars look for another young quarterback to develop. And oh, by the way, my comp for him is Mike Glennon, who, oh, by the way, you just signed as a backup quarterback. So I don't know if that had anything to do with Jake Luton or not, but it's so coincidental that the guy that looks just like him is now on the team. And maybe if Gardner Minshew is the guy, if he proves that he is in fact the guy and you don't need to draft a quarterback next year, Jake Luton may be your backup moving forward. And what better guy to mentor him than the guy he looks just like and plays just like in Mike Glennon. So I find that to be very interesting, to say the least. As we move on and get to the final portion of this Jaguars draft. 6th round, 206th pick overall, tight end out of Georgia Tech. Tyler Davis is the pick. 6'4", 250-pound tight end. Ran a 4.65, so there is some athleticism here. 17 catches for 148 yards, 1 touchdown in 12 games. Career stats, 64 catches for 648 yards and 8 scores in 47 games. Strengths, possesses athleticism and speed. I just told you he ran a 4.65. That was better than all but like 2 or 3 guys at the combine, so he can pick him up and put him down. Long strider that eats up grass in open field. When he gets to open field, when he's running the seam balls, the over routes, he can run by some guys. He can stretch you vertically. He's running that wheel route up the sideline. He's a problem. Can stretch the field vertically. I just talked about that. Solid body control. He's one of those guys that can contort his body to make a tough catch over his frame, extending outside of his frame. Catch radius. I just talked about him being able to catch the football outside of his frame and do work there. Can extend outside his frame for the football. So again, kind of harping on that catch radius. And was named the team captain, one of the team captains on Georgia Tech's squad. In his lone year there, he came over from Connecticut, from UConn, to Georgia Tech as a graduate transfer. In his 1 year there, he was thought of so highly that he was made a captain. So again, harping on the leadership qualities and those traits in the locker room. He is bringing that to the table. Weaknesses. Route running needs major work. He is not a route runner at this point. And the reason why he's not a route runner is the next weakness. Still adjusting to the physicality of blocking as a tight end. And the reason all of these things exist, he was a former quarterback recruit when he got to UConn. All right. He got to UConn and then they said, you know what, man, you're so big, you're so athletic. How about you move to wide receiver? So he makes the transition to wide receiver. And then after that, he spends the first 3 years at UConn as a quarterback / wide receiver. And then he turns into a tight end, you know, his final year at UConn. And then he goes to Georgia Tech. So essentially you're talking about, you know, 2 real seasons as a tight end. And he did some work his final year at UConn as a tight end, but more of an inline, more of a move tight end right now than an inline tight end. His blocking needs a lot of work, as you would expect for a guy with not a lot of experience as a tight end. Right now, he's just an athletically gifted guy. You don't really trust him in the run game. They did use him as a crack guy to come down and crack as a blocker. He does that effectively, but when you ask him to line up in line as a traditional inline tight end, he struggles to block there. But he's got size. He's got athleticism. They're workable traits. These are the kind of guys you take late in the draft to see if there's anything really here or not. And so my comp for him is Garrett Selleck, the tight end that just recently retired from San Francisco out of UConn, played a bunch of years in the league, the brother of Brent Selleck. And so just retired with the 49ers. Really solid pass catcher, but you know, I think he has a chance, does Tyler Davis, to crack this roster. But there's a lot of guys at the tight end position. They're going to throw him in the mix and see if he's able to develop. You know, you drafted Josh Oliver last year. Still waiting for him to develop. And we'll see what happens. Like I said, a lot of interesting guys in that tight end room. They're going to throw Tyler Davis in the mix, and we'll see what happens. For me, he's a 2 at this point. We'll see what happens. But he's got some athleticism and some workable traits. We'll see if he amounts to anything. And we finally wrap up this Jaguars draft here. In the 7th round, 223rd pick overall. Cornerback Chris Claybrooks is the pick out of Memphis. 5'9", 177, ran a 4.36 40, so the guy can fly. I'll just quickly break him down. I don't really have a lot here for you because, frankly, that this guy is a work in progress. So he's a JUCO transfer that switched from wide receiver / running back to cornerback upon landing in Memphis in 2018. So essentially what I'm telling you is this guy's got 2 years of experience at corner, and it shows. And then to make matters worse, he had a foot injury that claimed the first 5 games of 2019. So he only played in 9 games this past year, did have an interception, and a couple of pass breakups and a forced fumble. But right now, my thing is, if he's going to make this football team, it's going to be as a kick returner. Had a kick return for a touchdown. The opening kickoff of the first game against Cincinnati, they played 2 straight weeks versus Cincinnati in the AAC. One to find out who was going to host the AAC championship game, and then the next week, the AAC championship game. And in those games, the first one, he returns the opening kickoff 94 yards for a touchdown. Right out of the gate. Explosive, dynamic, you see it. But man, does he look small on the field. Like, you know what's crazy is he's 5'9". You know who else is 5'9"? Josiah Scott. Josiah Scott doesn't look 5'9". He looks 5'11". But he's 5'9". Chris Claybrooks looks 5'7", but he's 5'9". He looks like a dwarf out there. Guys are towering over him. 6'3" guys look like 6'9" guys compared to him. So he just struggles. He does not look back for the football at all. Has no idea where the ball is. Absolutely doesn't care to look back for the football. Face guards all day long. But who are you affecting face guarding when a guy is 6'2" and you're 5'9"? He could care less about your face guard, man. Okay? So he's got a long way to go. He struggles. I'm watching him in the Cincinnati game, the first one, the one that he had to kick return in. And it's late in the ball game. Memphis is up a couple scores. They're up 10, I think, at this point. And the only way that Cincinnati can get back into the game is a big play. It's 3rd and 15. And at that point, he's playing cover 3. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. Keep every goddamn thing in front of you. You're up 10 with less than 2 minutes in the game. Bruh, don't give it up behind you. It's 3rd and 15, and he's playing the sticks. What are you doing? Eyes in the backfield. The receiver runs right by him. I mean, right by him as if he's standing still, and they complete a 45-yard pass on 3rd and 15. Dude, no. No. So he's just got a long way to go at the cornerback position. He doesn't look back. He's not an LLCer. He's extremely raw. But again, these are the kinds of guys you take. Limited exposure to the cornerback position, bunch of workable tools. It's obvious that you're looking for a nickel. You know, another 5'9" corner selected here, which tells me you're looking for a nickel. All right, well, let's see if he's got the ability to make that transition. Worst case scenario, because he's not ready to help you right away like Josiah Scott is. Worst case scenario is that he makes this team as a returns guy, because he can also help you as a gunner. He's shown the ability to do that. So if he can help you on specials, initially that's his way to get his foot in the door, and then maybe he can ultimately get better at the cornerback position and contribute there. But right now, he's of no use to you as a defender. He's strictly a special teams guy here in the 7th round. And obviously, he's a 2 right now because of his special teams prowess. If not for that, this guy's a 1. There you have it. The Jacksonville Jaguars 12-player draft in a nutshell. It was a marathon, but we got through it. The Jaguars had 12 players selected. Tallied up the scores, you get an overall aggregate score of 40. You divide that by 12, and you get 3.33 for what amounts to a B in this draft. Right now, the Jags are the leaders in the clubhouse with a B, the first team to acquire a grade higher than a B- in this draft. So I thought it was a great job of Dave Caldwell getting a mixture of highly talented and skilled players with leadership qualities, and also getting guys that meet needs on this football team. It was a well-done draft, as it always is, by Dave Caldwell, and I'm anxious to see how this Jaguar team performs in 2020. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network. If you haven't already done so, remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until the next time we meet, you guys take care, and make sure you continue to tune in to the Louie T Network for more coverage of the 2020 NFL Draft and the NFL in general. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Louie T Network, and also on IG, Louie T Network _. Until next time, you guys take care. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.